What did a crush do that made you instantly lose interest in him or her? He asked me to help him sleep with my best friend. At the time, I thought he was indirectly rejecting me and asking for my friend's number at the same time. Two birds with one stone, you know? Well, I asked my friend if she liked him and she said yes, so I became the matchmaker. They dated for like 3 months and broke up. The guy later told me she wasn't what he expected her to be. He also told some of his friends liked me and he didn't want to be a part of some manly fight. Well, we become good friends. I still had a little crush on him, but I had to change school, so I hit it and we parted like 5 years ago. And I'm still wondering what he's doing right now. It was a bittersweet crush. I bet he knew I still had a crush on him too. So he consulted his bros on which girl to date. I'm sure they had very insightful and mature opinions. Not. Story 2. Turns out he never bothered to develop a personality because his looks and sporting prowess carried him through every interaction in his life. I didn't care about sports, so when I finally ended up having a one-on-one chat with the guy, he was a complete void, couldn't talk about anything, hadn't even developed the ability to ask questions because he was all too happy to just be praised and talked about all the time. It was so bizarre. He didn't really know what he liked, had no real opinion on anything outside of sports, didn't have any hobbies, and was just generally dull as a dishwasher. So I'm seeing a few responses saying I was possibly dismissive of him and his interests since I dislike sports, or that maybe he was just shy or couldn't really ask questions. No. I met plenty of people that like stuff that I don't, but their passion for it and their desire to share it with you is what brings you into the conversation. There is a big difference between being talked to and talked at. This guy didn't care if I watched or liked basketball, whether I understood the references, whether I'd heard of a player, a coach, or anything. He didn't actually even bother, even with the one topic he cared about, to actually include me in the conversation. Also, when I asked him what he did in his downtime, he said he sometimes played video games to relieve stress. I asked him which games he loved playing, and he said, and I quote, honestly, mostly anything. No follow-up. Then I asked him about his last basketball game, and then he went into chatty Cathy mode again. Rinse and repeat with me asking about movies, TV, art, politics, food, holidays, childhood memories, friends in common, etc., etc. He never asked me a single question the entire conversation, not even, do you watch basketball? He was just happy to talk at me about it like I should just enjoy listening to him go on and on about his stats and his player interactions and his strategies. We were on a coffee date that he asked me out to, so for people saying I was clearly barking up the wrong tree and he didn't want to talk to me, I'd argue that probably wasn't the case. Story 3. I've shared this before, but one time I was out on a first date with this girl I met online. I thought she was very attractive, and we seemed to hit it off well through text. And we're at this bar, and she suggests we play a people-watching game where we try to make up backstories for the other people there. I thought it sounded fun, especially since I played a similar game with friends on the train sometimes. Plus, it felt like a good icebreaker to get us talking. Well, she managed to take all the fun out of the game by being ridiculously cruel in all of her assumptions for no real reason at all. I felt like she was projecting issues she had onto these people. Like one guy was sitting at the bar alone, could have been waiting for someone, you never know. But because he was alone, he was a freaking loser with no friends that hates his life. Completely ended the mood and I lost interest in her after that. Couldn't see myself going on a second date with someone like that. Story 4. Didn't defend me when his friends tried to harm me, just laugh with them. This is the long version of the story. I've never been popular, was always pestered and stuff. One of the things people told me was that I was a prude because I never had a boyfriend at that point. Apparently, some of my classmates got inspired by that and started a bet. Whoever could do me in would win. Every contestant put in a certain amount of money at the height of the contest. It was about 100 euros that would be their prize. All of a sudden, I was invited to popular parties. People tried to make me drink. Random people started talking to me, flirting. More and more people became aware of the bet, so even people I'd never talked to or who were complete strangers to me started to hit me up. It was weird. I was still in the dark about the bet, and I didn't get why some guys, sometimes even girls, wanted to hang out with me or wanted to see me drink. Luckily for me, I don't drink, but it was all very uncomfortable. My crush and I went on a school trip together for the rest of our year, and all of a sudden, things got out of hand. Now, the supervision of the teachers is half gone, people trying to ask me if I ever kissed someone. You can imagine how scared I was as a 15-year-old, no adults in sight, only me and these 10 to 16-year-olds. I was hoping my crush would defend me. He was a nice guy, never laid a hand on anybody, always friendly, but he just laughed. It took 2 more months before another girl had the courage to tell me what was going on. She used the word "do in," and I was so flustered to ask if she meant the light version or all the way. When I told the teachers about the bet, about all the people who were involved, about how no one told me anything about it, not even the girls, they told me I had no proof, was imagining things again, and that boys will be boys, what can we do about that? It all stopped when I got a boyfriend that very summer who was 5 years older than me and would later turn out to be cruel. He looked like he was 30 though, so I guess most of the guys got too scared to lay a hand on me. But yeah, that's how my crush lost my interest. Story 5. Long distance, only online crush/boyfriend. We were playing a modified TTRPG in the early 2010s and we made the horrible mistake of playing a version of ourselves. Same names, ages, etc. Lots of crap happened, but the thing that really made me feel like crap was when I felt like a third wheel with him and his best bro. We were playing in a survival setting, so we would delegate chores to make sure we had supplies, fuel, ammo, etc. by the end of each day. Each time, my BF would choose to go with his guy friend for things. I didn't mind the first couple of times, but I did kind of want a day where the two of us hung out, since again, this was a LD relationship. Never happened. The one time I forced the issue and said I was coming along to hunt or something, they just ignored me and did their usual thing. Joke's on me though. Turns out BF was deep in the closet and hanging out with his guy friend in-game was him living out his fantasy of having a boyfriend. Story 6. During middle school, before I came out, I had a huge crush on a girl named Haya. She was super chill, awesome, and outgoing with me. Then spring break came. We hadn't seen each other for a week, maybe more. We used to leave our houses at the same time, sit together in class, and hang out a lot. After spring break, she stopped doing all those things with me and seemed to hate me. She had previously told me about how she used to harm herself at her last school and how she got gum stuck in her hair from oppressors. During spring break, she met Rowan, another nice girl. When two women get together, they can be a force to be reckoned with. For the Valentine's Day celebration, you could pay 50 cents to buy someone a Valentine's Day heart with a little note. I bought 5, all for her. Some were anonymous and others had my name. I asked them to send them to her one at a time, and they did. When she got the second or third one, she got really angry and came over to me in homeroom. She said, and I quote, because I cried for a whole hour and my mom had to pick me up because I was so upset, "Hey, my name, I just wanted you to know that I think it's sweet, but you're really freaking creepy and ugly and fat and not a single soul will ever love you. So I kindly ask that you stop sending me these heart candies because I don't need to get fat like you." I didn't show up to homeroom for the rest of the year. Story 7. A few things. She told me she hated how much guys share their feelings and emotions now. She said that if she dates someone, she wants them to be a quote-unquote typical man and not show any type of weakness. One of those things like, I don't want to hear if a man is sad or upset, I just don't care. She liked pretty heavy music, like prog metal and hardcore music, which is cool. However, she didn't like anything else and would blatantly put down any other type of music and or not give it a chance. Almost made you feel stupid for liking anything else. Showed her friend's artwork and her response was, "Yeah, not impressive. It would be impressive if they did X and Y." Like, I understand that you don't have to like every person's art, but her demeanor about it was just too condescending. TBH, I have no hard feelings for her. We moved on. It's okay. And for sure, I don't think it's representative of all women. People have their own preferences. What she liked just wasn't my thing. Story 8. In my very first relationship, they kept telling me every freaking day how much they've been hurt in the past and that they hoped it wouldn't make them suffer the same. I tried to help them, like talk about their problems and all, but since it was a long-distance relationship, it was kind of hard. And them always talking about things made me so worried. It was terrible for my mental health. I wanted to leave it since it made me lose interest, but I didn't want to hurt them like they kept saying how much they've been hurt. And one day, it was just too much for me, so I just blocked them everywhere. I know I'm kind of the bad guy in this story for just leaving like that, but I just couldn't bear it anymore. I've read most of your comments and I didn't mention that before blocking them, I just said that I had lost interest and didn't want that relationship anymore. Literally just those words. I was so confused I didn't know what else I could say and just wanted to go away from that person. And that's literally the worst thing I could have done. I realize thanks to some of your comments. So please, if you ever find yourself in a similar situation, don't do the same mistakes as me. Explain to that person how it's been for you so maybe them and their future BF or GF won't have to live the same thing. Story 9. Not necessarily a crush, but a married coworker I might be interested in if she were single. My coworkers had a bar crawl for a holiday party one year. We finished at one of the bars, so some of us started going to the next bar that was just down the street. My coworker and I passed this one store that sold games like Magic and D&D. She half joked that she was tempted to go in and laugh at the people in there. That rubbed me the wrong way for 2 reasons. First, she's a school counselor and talked about how pestering is bad. Hypocrite much? Secondly, I'm the kind of person who might play those kinds of games, so she unknowingly said that she'd be willing to laugh at me. Story 10. We went out to breakfast, maybe our second or third date, and bumped into this friend who sat with us for a bit while ordering a coffee to go. Just long enough to be super rude to the guy serving us. I just couldn't get over the fact that he had friends like this. I let it fade out. Bumped into him maybe a year later, and he opened by telling me that he'd written off that friend as a total schmuck, and that he should have stopped giving him the time of day after high school. I literally high-fived him, which he thought was funny, and went out for a few years after that. All right, he redeemed himself by admitting his friend was a schmuck. That's like relationship 101, right? Story 11. Not so much a crush, but a really good friend who we messed around and, in fact, lost our V card to each other with. She went from a cool punk rocker with tons of artistic talent to a fundamentalist Christian because it was her emotional reaction to her father's unexpected passing. She fell really hard into an evangelical cult, and her entire personality changed. She became cold, mean, rigid in her values, and started adopting very conservative and bigoted views. I tried to maintain the friendship because I thought maybe I could be her lifeline to turn her back on this habit, but I couldn't. She eventually told me that either I had to be a Christian or we couldn't be friends, and that was that. I'm actually friends with her on IG, and she's a conservative housewife and looks completely unhappy. It's really sad what she could have been. Story 12. I had a crush on a girl for a couple of years and didn't ask her out because life was busy for me, but eventually I was able to ask her out. I took her to the movies to see the most recent Star Wars movie. Before the movie started, she was slamming beers down, which I have no issue with drinking, but she was near hammered. During the movie, she would talk throughout the entire movie and constantly look at her phone. Funny enough, she would even make some rude comments towards other people for talking, and I would cringe at the irony. Later that night, we drove to a gas station so she could get some cigarettes, and she was being completely rude to the cashier because he couldn't understand what she was asking for in her belligerent state. She tried to convince me to stay the night with her, but any attraction I had for her was completely gone by then. Story 13. For context, this was in 1986. Nancy Reagan's Just Say No to Substances campaign was at its height. I was totally in love with a girl in my junior high school. She was a year older than me. I had mustered up the courage to ask her to meet me at our town's Oktoberfest. She agreed. We were sitting, eating a bratwurst or something, and she asked if I wanted to go smoke some grass. Without hesitation, I stood up and walked away, never to look at her or speak to her again. Because, after all, at the time of the youth were being told that grass use was equal to substance use, I thought often of how that went down and how it could have been the most epic night of my life. I'd like to find that girl today and burn one down with her. Story 14. First date, we chatted online. It seemed all good. He knew I was alternative in my styles, etc. He shows up with this god-awful necklace, like it was if he had a bad idea of my style, which is exactly what happened because he obviously Googled alternative necklaces for girls or something. I'm not great at receiving gifts anyway, but he presented it like he was asking to marry me. I politely declined, saying, "Ooh, that's nice, but I don't really know you. I can't accept this." Maybe we could have laughed about it with the grandkids years into the future. Nope. He starts crying and asking why I don't like his gift. He picked it out especially. It was a symbol of his love. Oh boy. I noped out of there so fast, he called me a witch later, and I just shook my head and got on with my life. Story 15. I had a crush on a girl through most of high school, but was rarely in a class with her. I think I first saw her in the gym as a freshman then, didn't have another class with her until senior year. I actually ended up in a work group with her in senior foods, which I guess we both took as a blow-off class. It was there that I stopped having a crush on her. What did she do? Honestly, nothing. She was nice and friendly enough. I don't recall her being stupid or boring or anything. She just simply came down off the pedestal I had put her on in my mind all those years, and she became an acquaintance rather than some amazing goddess. Once the mystique was gone, I just kind of lost interest. Story 16. Went out with a guy once and we decided to become a thing too quick. When I mentioned I wasn't wearing a garment, he hit a set of train tracks full force and everything jumped. But also you couldn't tell I didn't have one on and I only mentioned it as a joke. He lost it and kept asking why I wasn't wearing one and how he didn't even notice, but what if someone had and all this other stuff. This is just the tip of the iceberg though, because not too much later, I asked how he felt about the LGBT side of things and he was like, coolish, until I said that I also liked women. To which, even after we'd both gone to our respective homes, he kept texting me about and asking things about like, if you're bi, then do you want a girlfriend? No, I'm with you. So you just want to have a triad or something with another girl? Do you have someone in mind? No, I already told you I'm not super into intimacy either way, and like I said before, I'm with you. Well then, how could you be attracted to women then? I just am, just like there's other men out there that I could be with, but currently am not. So you want to have a triad with another guy then? I thought you were into girls. No, just forget I ever said anything, OMG. So yeah, that happened. Then he decided to bring up politics on our second date. You know who was the best thing to happen to America, and when I politely disagreed but said it's fine that we don't have the same political ideals, he lost it. Would not stop trying to sell me on who he must not be named, kept citing reasons I should like him, all of which were pretty flimsy IMO, and which I kept saying I didn't want to talk about it and it wasn't important ATM as we'd only dated for at least less than a week and it wasn't that serious yet to have to consider all of our beliefs and how they differed, but he just would not stop. It's just ridiculous how much it mattered to him that I like the man. After 2 days of silence, I texted him and said I wanted to break up and how sorry I was that I felt that this needed to happen, and he didn't even try to apologize or anything. Okay, was all I got. Still think about how narrow-minded that dude was. Story 17. I'd been chatting with a guy I met online. He was a chef and seemed pretty swell in text. So we met up for sushi, and I'm aware of the fact that I can be a bit of a rambler, especially when nerves are a factor. I'm usually fairly conscious of this, so after going on about theater for a while, I made a point to ask him some stuff. I said something to the effect of, well, I've been rambling a whole bunch. What about you? What's your big passion? And he responded, oh, me, I'm boring. I just want to get to know you. It was an immediate turnoff for me. I don't know if that was meant to be flattering or what, but I'm interested in dating a whole person with independent thoughts and feelings. And if you are enjoying the video and learning a thing or two so far, please don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos just like this. Story 18. A coworker and I were always flirting and even went out on a few dates. It seemed like we were about to start something. Then one day she suddenly went cold. Maybe she was afraid of us actually getting together since we worked in the same company or whatever. After a few attempts of inviting her out to places I knew she would enjoy, I started giving up on her. As soon as I pulled back, the more she started to act all flirty and cute towards me again, but whenever I would ask her out, she would go cold. So I decided to ignore her advances even if it hurt. Luckily, one day after me ignoring her for a week or so, she came into my office and told me a joke. You know what's the difference between us and a calendar? She asked, trying to keep her laughter. I said, I have no clue. Then she finally answered, we don't have dates, and bursted out laughing. That very moment, I kind of was instantly over her. Story 19. She was a tall redhead with big blue eyes who loved the outdoors, and I was way out of my league. Somehow I talked her into going with me to a concert in the park, and one of those summer evenings next to a lake, some middle-aged guys in Hawaiian t-shirts playing Jimmy Buffett and Eagles songs, and people our parents' age dancing in the light of tiki torches. We caught part of a bottle of rum off of a guy in a ridiculous hat and white shorts and gold chains. We passed it back and forth as I sat, leaned up against a tree, and she leaned into my shoulder. It was magic. Then, on the way home, we were driving down one of those winding, hilly roads through the woods. As we rounded a corner, there was a possum standing right in the middle of the road. Not just one, though. A big mama with babies stacked on her back. I swerved left, she went left. I swerved right, she went right under the driver's side tire. Holy crap, that was awful. And this girl in the passenger seat was just laughing, not a little nervous laugh that people do when they're uncomfortable. She was sunk down in the passenger seat, contorted with her hands on her stomach, laughing hysterically. I couldn't even look at her after that. Story 20. I'm a naturally hairy woman. Since I was 13, I could spend an hour per day shaving myself and there would be visible hairs the next day. I've decided to ignore my arm hair and my little mustache. I pluck my chin and eyebrows, shave my legs relatively often, and do the best I can with the aforementioned problem areas. In high school, this guy and I took a liking to each other. Everyone thought we were so great together because we were both outspoken and tended to get philosophical quite often. This can be annoying to certain people, so they figured we would go great together and not annoy each other. They were kind of right, I suppose, meaning we did hang out quite a bit, but there was one thing I just could not get over. Now, this guy, he's pale, blonde, and scrawny. Even in his early 20s, I don't think he's ever had a single chin hair yet, not to mention general body hair. The hairs he does have are all pale and barely visible too. And at one point, he said he thinks people with body hair who don't shave are absolutely disgusting, and any romantic inclinations I had towards him just vanished. I can't live under a razor because of a dude, screw that. Anyway, we are still friends, and I hope he figures out that's a completely ridiculous thing to say to a woman. He probably thinks all women are like naturally hairless, like himself, like a Ken doll. Bless his heart. Maybe not. Story 21. Met at the cafe we both worked at, interacted a couple of times, and we hit it off, and he seemed like a lovely enough guy who was interested in me. I told my best mate about him, and he was happy for me and was excited to meet him as the three of us, plus another work friend, we were all going to be at the same event soon. The event rolls around, and my friend meets me at work as I finish so we could head in together, and Crush shared our Uber to be dropped at his house before heading in with our other work friend. Crush was incredibly rude the entire trip and made little to no effort to engage with me or my friend despite both of us continuously trying. And when we arrived at the event later on, he was just as blasé and acted too cool for us. Aloofness is such a turnoff, and I was embarrassed my mate had to witness it. Additionally, he's always posting on social media about his expensive jewelry and fashion. And despite not talking to me since I left the job, he hits me up only when I post something a little more vain and not anything I post with a bit more substance and not of myself. Glad I didn't waste too much time there. Story 22. Prettiest boy in school, but when he admitted to the whole science class that his plan A was simply to live off welfare, he wasn't disabled or anything like that, mind you, just kind of a stupid user, which I didn't know at the time. Didn't care about so much as graduating high school and fully intended to do absolutely nothing with his life. Not everyone has a grand goal and that's fine, but to genuinely just want to rake in taxpayer money while sitting on your back doing substance all day for the rest of your life gives you such a bad name to the folks who genuinely need that assistance. People like him are why my father is anti literally every social program despite them being such a minority. Oh, I also overheard him tell a friend he liked me but didn't know why because I was a bit thicker, and he also did not usually like girls smarter than him. Broke up with his girlfriend over it and literally never even talked to me once, but he sat behind me in class and I eavesdropped like a witch. We also had the same name. What a doozy. Story 23. This may or may not be a good reason or even to be read, but I was dating a girl and she wanted to get it on the days I would pick her up, but she just got out of the gym all those times, so naturally she kind of like smells like Funky Town. Well, sweating all natural is fine, but then I would get in the mood and ooh boy, let me tell you, that was a bad move. All 3 days, it was like if you left your fishing glove, that's all wet in your pants for days. It was a major interest loss when I found out she was doing it on purpose, so I would dump her. Story 24. Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest here. I'd known that girl for a really long time, like 13 years, and we're still 15. We started talking after a gap of around 6 years, and all that time I had remembered her. She was pretty nice for the first couple of days, but I soon realized that it was just me trying to desperately keep the conversation up. I started distancing myself slowly, and there was no change in the attitude from her side. It hurt a little, but I was fine for a couple of days until she made contact again. She needed some help with her homework, and naturally I helped her out, even though I myself had to submit a couple of assignments the next day. Anyway, after that, I had a rough week with lots of fights with my parents and was feeling kind of low. I tried opening up to her because I thought she understood me. Nope, she did not. I know her parents pretty well, and they love and support her a lot, and she's popular, so having lots of friends isn't a problem for her. I'm the lonely and shy guy, so I can't even open up to many people. She just asked me to get over it, that like it was nothing. Even though I didn't like her that way, it still hurt. So once again, I said that I was going off Insta, and then I blocked her in our mutuals. I couldn't get myself to talk to her. That's about it. Story 25. They didn't care when I was hurt. I was going through a tough time, just having had surgery and being bedridden for a month. He told me he loved me, but he lived far away and was busy with school, so I didn't want to bother him during those times, despite how lonely and scared I felt. Then one day, on top of everything, my dog passed away. I called him crying, and he told me to call back later because he was busy. So I did, and when I called back, he completely forgot about my dog and just went on and on talking about how some girls might be interested in sharing his apartment, etc. That was when I said, I can't do this anymore, and completely lost interest. In general, I actually use this trick to get over crushes. When something bad happens to me, I tell them. If they couldn't care less, then I immediately lose all attraction. I only like kind and caring people. They've resorted to personal attacks and arguments or got defensive. I find defensiveness extremely unattractive. And when someone tries to protect their ego by saying things to hurt you, then that means they care about their ego way more than about your feelings. It's so easy to buy 1,000 roses or organize a candlelit dinner, But the most touching, brave, and romantic thing to me is when someone, even when his ego is threatened, still treats the other person with utmost care and respect. My principle is no matter what the other person does to me, I will never say anything purely to hurt or make them feel bad. Their well being always comes first, and I can only be attracted to a man who believes the same. Complaining, blaming others instead of doing anything to solve his problems. Once I had a crush on a guy that was very kind and sweet. However, he complained a lot about his life but never took any responsibility and has no plan to do anything about it. I still care about him, but how could I find that attractive? Story 26. Okay, I'm just gonna vent here because this literally just happened. I don't care if anyone reads or not, but I feel like I just need to write it out. A little info, we are both 15 and we were what I considered good friends up till this point, friends of around 7 years. We never do anything with each other because we are busy, but I still try and arrange stuff anyways. I organized this thing for us to do, watch this comedy show thing. I planned the whole thing and organized everything. I asked her and she doesn't reply for ages and said she would get around to it. Took her about a week or so. And the other day, she had her mom tell me not only that she didn't want to go because she thought it would be awkward, but also that she didn't want to tell me because she didn't want to hurt my feelings. I thought friends could go watch a show together and it would be fine, but apparently not. Sure, it might be a little awkward at first, but it would be fun nonetheless. I just can't believe that she couldn't tell me herself that she didn't want to go. Like, ouch. I don't even know if I want to be friends anymore. It doesn't feel like a friendship when you do everything and get nothing out of it, nothing in return. A friend of 7 years, man, can't even watch a show together. I think I at least deserve the courtesy to hear it from her, and if she couldn't tell me herself, I don't know if I want to be friends anymore. Story 27. I had a crush on this guy. We were really close, talking on the phone late at night, and he's complaining about his ex, my best friend, basically telling me what went wrong between them, and what went wrong was that he would try to gently correct him when he said offensive crap. Not like flat-out bigoted stuff, but like he'd say that if women were just more polite about, I don't know, not wanting to be pestered, then maybe they would get their way, and implying that he thought the same was true for queer people, etc. And if he tried to explain why that was not a good take, even in the gentlest, most coddling way, he'd think you were attacking him. Also, I don't really think there are stupid people. There are just people who are different kinds of intelligent. And we were very different kinds of intelligent. Trying to talk to him about anything other than video games and rock climbing was like pulling teeth. He was cute and kind of funny, but ugh. Story 28. I was out with a group of friends when I had a whiz. The line for the ladies' room was too long, and so I decided to use the guys. And as I was walking out, my crush and his buddy started walking in, so I ducked back into the stall. The boys were doing their thing, and his friend said he thought I was hot and was going to ask me out. Crush told him not to, that I wasn't the kind to just mess around with people. Friend says he doesn't care about that, and it seemed fun. Crush then says he called dibs on me, and the friend asked why he'd want dibs if I didn't put out, and Crush says, like she'd have a choice. Then they both laughed, and his friend said, it's better like that anyway. I almost retched. I waited until they left, found the girls in the group, told them what happened, and we decided to bail. The boys, there were 2 others that were with them, intercepted us as we were leaving and asked why we were leaving. So I said none of us felt like getting mistreated. They all looked confused, and I told them I heard them in the bathroom and to stay away from me and my friends. All 4 of them tried saying it was a joke, and we were too uptight, so I told them all to screw off and lose our numbers. We never talked to them again, and later on we heard that my former crush and one of the other boys mistreated a girl who had passed out at a party while their friends watched, recorded, and laughed. If her friends hadn't found her then, I shuddered to think what else would have happened. It definitely taught me that real men don't joke like that, and if someone does, run in the other direction. Story 29. Way back in the early 90s, I worked in a video store. I had a regular customer who was my age, super cute, and a very nice guy. He made my heart flutter every time he came in. He had been in a car accident a few years prior and had some physical limitations. One side of his body was very slow. He walked with a big limp. One arm/hand didn't work so well. I could tell he liked me too, as we were both very flirty, and I was super excited when he asked me out on a date. He picked me up in his truck that was specially adapted for his needs. We had a nice dinner, then went and saw Dumb and Dumber at the movie theater. Everything was going great until the diarrhea scene. This guy laughed so hard at poop jokes it shook my young, insecure, I can't admit it, I fart self. He almost fell into the aisle. It was so funny to him. I'll never forget it, and it turned me right off. I avoided him every time he came into the video store after that. I was 19 and didn't know how to voice my feelings about the poop humor. Now, I'm 45 and think of him every time I see the movie, which I do love, except that scene. I'm still not into bathroom humor, but have no problem farting in front of my husband. Story 30. Think I can come at this from a different angle. Someone who was crushing on me. I had zero idea, I swear. We worked in the same office building. We had gone to lunch together once and nothing else. Then one day, she messaged me out of the blue and told me she met someone and how I'd regret losing her, and something about her mom thinking I was weird and a loser. Like, what the heck? To add some background, I had received a delivery of red roses in the past with a card calling me an angel and secret admirer, and in the internal post, I had gotten an envelope with a silver chain but had no reason or logic to link this to her. Biggest thing I took away from all this is that it isn't the end of the world to make a move on someone you like. Either something good happens or you can move on. You miss 100% of the shots you do not take. Story 31. I was really into this girl when I was in middle school. I was doing my awkward best to flirt and make her laugh, which also meant I was making her friends laugh. One day, she cornered me alone at the public pool and asked me straight up if I had a thing for her. I said yes. She smiled, then told me that one of her friends had a crush on me. Was a weird follow-up, I thought. She then asked if I would consider dating her friend if it meant she and I could fool around on the side. I may have been a little weird kid, but just the thought of being in that kind of deceitful relationship ended any feelings I had for her. Story 32. I was matched with a guy on eHarmony years ago. We lived 3 hours apart, so he would come visit me every other weekend initially. And we had wonderful chemistry. He was attractive, fit, funny, and successful. We had similar interests, and he was also a Harvard grad, which I thought was impressive. After 2 months, we decided I would go visit him for a weekend. He was a gentleman and said I could sleep in his guest room. I arrived at this 3-story, 2-year-old townhome that had a stately exterior with pretty landscaping. He came out to get my suitcase and we walked into his home. He opened the door, and what I initially noticed was that the entryway floor was dirty and sticky. He showed me around and there were piles of items everywhere, including discarded food boxes. His kitchen was filthy, dishes piled in the sink, dirty countertops, overflowing garbage, etc. Of course, I needed to use the bathroom. I went to his powder room and it was gross. The toilet looked like it had never been cleaned. The last straw was when I saw long strands of hair on his sink and floor of different colors: blonde hair, brunette hair, curly red hair. I was incredulous and asked why he didn't even clean before I arrived. He said he is a very busy person and doesn't think cleaning is important. I grabbed my suitcase and left. I blocked him and never spoke to him again. Story 33. I was at a destination wedding at these mountain cabins in California and met this girl, friend of the bride, who was this gorgeous, positive, intellectual distance runner working on a sub-3-hour marathon. We'd hit it off during the weekend and talked, and I was developing a crush on her. Everything instantly evaporated when she was driving me to the airport at the end of the weekend, and during the course of the hour drive, made inappropriate jokes with a friend about people we drove past, and fat jokes at people out running. It was so unexpectedly cruel that even the lingering interest evaporated instantly. Story 34. We had everything in common, did nearly everything together, and had amazing chemistry. I thought I was getting signals and felt it was worth the risk because she was pretty awesome. I asked if she wanted to take things into dating territory, and she felt that it wasn't a good time for her and really wanted to remain friends. Said she wanted to talk about it more. We used to do lunchtime walks. We were coworkers but in a large company, so I proposed a few of those. Nope. We were both going to the same film festival after work one day, so I said, "Hey, do you want to go walk together?" She flipped her crap. No means no. Don't you freaking get it? What is the matter with you? Okay. So much for being friends and keeping things as they were. A month or two later, we were both pursuing the same professional accreditation, and she asked if I wanted to be study buddies. So I said, sure. After that, I haven't really talked to her since. I still don't understand, and it still makes me sort of sad, but also cringe to this day. Luckily, I met someone 100,000 times better and 100,000 times less weird, and we built a pretty amazing life together. Story 35. I went to a party with her, and at one moment, it all seemed too overstimulating, and I had a panic attack and shut down a bit. She started leaning on me, and when she could tell I was uncomfortable, she started asking a ton of questions, even though it was very clear I was having a very hard time putting my thoughts into words. It was very overwhelming, and for a week or two after, I didn't reach out to her like I had before. I definitely still wanted to be friends, and I thought maybe I had overreacted and we could still have a romantic future. Unfortunately, she later asked about the situation and if she had been a little much at the party. I was glad she had brought it up because awareness was all I really wanted out of that situation, and I told her as much. But then she replied back with a several long-minute video Snapchat talking about how this entire situation was my fault. She said, I didn't do anything wrong at least 3 times in that video, and she needed to be more responsive and to tell her at moments when I'm not doing well. She accused me of taking her leaning on me as something intimate as well, which absolutely wasn't true. I was just panicking because of the large crowd of people I didn't know and the loud music. I would have been happy to commit to being more communicative in the days or weeks after something like the panic attack at the party, and I wanted to explain that I wasn't freaking out over anything intimate, and panic attacks aren't something I can control in the moment. But the fact that she made so many assumptions and had this whole rant absolving herself of all responsibility, and then putting it all on me before we had a real conversation about it, raised a bunch of flags in the way she behaved, and I've been backing away ever since. And if you learned a thing or two from these stories, here's more for you. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. I'll catch you in that video.